I would like to welcome you all to Hackney Council's remote annual general meetings, which is being live streamed. I would particularly like to welcome Lieutenant Colonel Morris, Deputy Lieutenant of Hackney, who is joining us remotely this evening. You will be by now be familiar with the protocols for remote meetings, so please be mindful of them. Should you wish to speak, please turn on your camera and raise your hands, or use the chat function to alert me. Please note that the chat function should not be used for any other purposes. In the interest of time, please be succinct and concise with your comments. I would like to invite those members who wish to give tribute in respect of His Royal Highness, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, with particular reference to his charitable activities in the borough. Following tribute by members, a 1-minute silence will be observed by the Council. So, members who have indicated that they would like to speak, Mayor Glanville, Councillor Bramble, Councillor Kennedy. Mayor Glanville, could you please give your tribute, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm really pleased that you ensured that this was on the agenda this evening, and would like to echo the comments that we made in our joint statement on behalf of the Borough on the 19th of April, and I'm sure the contributions that we'll be making tonight. I'd also like to thank you, Deputy Lieutenant Morris, Deputy Mayor Bramble, Meg Hillier and St John at Hackney for organising a service of remembrance on the eve of what I'm sure we'll all agree was a unique and moving funeral. I think it's never easy being a moderniser, especially when you're a moderniser that lives to the age of 99. And like His Royal Highness Prince Philip, has also served for so long with distinction and royal duty. It's easy to forget when someone has lived such a long life how radical and fascinating his life was, and especially those early years of adversity and wartime service. I say he was a moderniser because from the start he sought to modernise the monarchy and took a keen interest in how our country, its institutions and our people were changing. He recognised that even before the age of deference ended, that the value of the monarchy and his contribution to it had to be earned. He was perhaps even more passionate about the value of skills and engineering than many of us gathered here tonight. But from the outset, he took a keen interest in young people through the Duke of Edinburgh's awards that he launched in 1956, inspired by his own school days. In January, we recognised the connection between these awards and Hackney's young people at a virtual ceremony. And I know that Deputy Mayor Bramble is going to go on to talk about the deep connection between the Duke of Edinburgh's awards and our young people. But the Duke of Edinburgh also made a number of visits to Hackney, most recently in 2012, when aged 90, he visited Laburnum Boat Club and then Hackney Quest as patron of London Youth, a charity which still supports projects across a network of 400 organisations across the capital. I also have taken the opportunity to look at photos shared by residents online in forums and seen him championing a very different East End when he visited the Crown and Manor in London and Lion clubs in Shoreditch, which are still flourishing in your ward, Mr. Speaker, that you represent. The Duke was a very public figure, but he was also a greatly loved husband and a huge source of strength to Her Majesty the Queen, a father, a grandfather and a great-grandfather. While we'll have seen that the Queen is already hard back at work, these days won't have been easy on her or her family. And on behalf of everyone in Hackney, my thoughts remain with her. And I would like to reiterate, on behalf of the borough, my condolences to the Queen, members of the royal family at this sad time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. Deputy Mayor Bramble, please make your own tribute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and just to echo my thanks to yourself, St John at Hackney, Reverend Al, Colonel Morris, with the service that we attended, to just be able to reflect and celebrate the Royal Prince's life, and representing not just myself but also the Mayor in his absence. The Mayor touched on something really important because he talked about the Duke of Edinburgh Award, and sometimes when people pass away, if we don't know them personally, sometimes it can feel quite distant to us, depending on how well you follow the royal family. But actually, the Duke of Edinburgh Award is deep rooted in Hackney and means a lot to our children and young people. So it's really important that we spend some time recognising and acknowledging that. So the world, as I said, has impacted hundreds of young people in Hackney, and many of them through Youth Parliament. And one of our young speakers, which is Abdul Olai, he is going on to his Gold Award, and he's really, really excited about that. One of the things that I got to do is talk to young people, Mr. Speaker, about doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award in the midst of lockdown, and just their sheer perseverance through that time and the work with staff through that time to make sure everything was COVID safe. And they're going to be doing an expedition in Snowdonia, and they were so excited, and they talked about the importance of the award, what it meant to them, how it helped some of them be more confident, some of them more resilient, some of them liked the opportunity to mix with their peers, some of them were excited about the teamwork because they felt like on their own they could work really hard, but actually what does that mean as part of a team? And I say all of these things. We also have a total of 13 bronze medals and 22 silver medals awards, Mr. Speaker, and all of that relates back to the Duke of Edinburgh Award. So I think actually the monarchy, the family, is very important to us here in Hackney, and it's really important that we acknowledge that, and really pleased that despite his passing, that the legacy of the Duke Award will still continue and impact the children and young people of Hackney. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bramble. Councillor Kennedy, can you make your own contribution, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to add my words to those of the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor in my capacity as Hackney's representative on the Lee Valley Regional Park Authority by paying tribute to the Duke of Edinburgh's commitment to regeneration in the area. His Royal Highness actually first saw the Lee Valley from a helicopter in the 1950s, and it was with his own characteristic bluntness that he described what he saw below him as a pretty average sort of mess. He decided to commit to helping to the regeneration of the area, and so when the Civic Trust launched a report into how this mess might be turned into a regional park, the keynote speech was delivered by Prince Philip at an event in 1964 in a disused Metropolitan Water Board pumping house on the Lea Bridge Road. His subsequent support is widely acknowledged to have been crucial in building the political will that led to the creation of the Park Authority. He returned to the Lee Valley on official visits many times over the course of the next 5 decades, and so it was only natural when Professor Tony Travers wrote a history of the LVRPA for its 50th anniversary that Prince Philip was his choice as author of the foreword. And I will just finish, Mr. Speaker, with the Duke's final 2 sentences from that introduction to the park's history. It has brought the Lee Valley back to life and created a green lung for London's densely populated East End and surrounding region. It is also a tribute to the active cooperation of all the local authorities which have worked together to develop this invaluable facility for their inhabitants. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. I now invite members and those who are watching online to join me in observing a 1 minute silence in remembrance of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 3, election of the Speaker for the municipal year 2021-2022. I now invite nomination for the position of Speaker for the municipal year 2021-2022. In the event of more than one nomination, each nomination is required to be seconded. Members may speak in support of each nomination. A vote will then be taken in line with majority voting procedures set out in Part 4, Paragraph 21 of the Council's Constitution. Now, I call for nomination for the position of the Speaker, Municipal Year 2021-2022. Call on Mayor Glanville to nominate the candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I'd normally say I rise with great pleasure, but I'm going to stay seated. I'm nominating Councillor Michael Desmond to the position of Speaker, and for a rare second term, an accolade only matched by Councillor Patrick. Councillor Desmond was first elected to New River Ward in 1990, serving until 1998, and after a 3-year gap, he won the Northwold by-election in 2001 and has served as a councillor ever since. An incredible 28 years in total. He now represents Hackney Downs Ward, and I think all of us that know Michael know him as a committed and dedicated councillor for Hackney Downs and a tireless campaigner. And most recently, I saw his dedication as a ward councillor firsthand when he and his ward colleagues took part in an in-person conversation on Nightingale Estate in the aftermath of a tragic murder. Bringing the community together and ensuring that there was a whole partnership response to that awful event. I would say that Councillor Desmond is a true Hackney polymath, someone interested in the arts, in planning, in history, and a raconteur about Hackney's past and present. He is a tireless ward councillor, as I've said, and he's passionate about tackling homelessness, poor quality accommodation, and the effects of the housing crisis. I also know, Mr. Speaker, that as Deputy Speaker in this unprecedented 2 years, he's supported you in your work, and he's also navigated the tricky waters of turning to online meetings and ensuring that these 2 years had the very best civic representation. And I know that he also laid a wreath on behalf of us all on Remembrance Sunday at Stoke Newington. He has a massive passion for our twinning relationships, and he's a true internationalist as well as passionate pro-European. And I think all of those things he will no doubt bring to what will be an exciting year with him as Speaker. He has a keen sense of humour, as I think many of us know, ready with a disarming quip, but usually underneath that joke, something really serious and important being landed. It's in that spirit, I'm sure, that he and all of us will be relieved that I got a firm reassurance from our communications team that tomorrow they will be issuing the correct portrait in their press release. Councillor Desmond has a serious commitment to supporting the borough, also as it is now, not how it used to be. He's been a consistent champion of green spaces, our young people, and most of all grassroots sport, including asking difficult questions of both this and the previous administration, and bringing a deputation to full council on the need to find a suitable venue for football in the borough. And I know that led to a very memorable debate in the council chamber. He's an ardent campaigner against hate and especially anti-Semitism. Many of us will remember his speakership 8 years ago, between 2013 and 14, when he championed tackling poverty in the borough through the Prince's Trust and St Mungo's Broadway. In that role, he served our borough with tremendous dedication and presided over our meetings with considerable aptitude and skill, and I have no doubt that he will do so again. I'm excited to hear more about what he plans for his next year as Speaker, and also the 2 incredible Hackney institutions he has chosen as his charities, 2 organisations uniquely impacted by COVID, and I know he already has exciting plans for fundraising them over the course of the next year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I hope that the whole chamber will support Councillor Desmond as our next Speaker.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. Are there any other nominations? Is there a seconder?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I would like to second.
Go on there, Councillor Maoma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be very brief, and it gives me really great pleasure to follow Mayor Glanville in seconding my long-standing ward colleague, Councillor Michael Desmond. Since I was elected in 2006 and then came back to Hackney Downs ward in 2016, Michael has been both an inspiration, but also has kept sometimes very difficult circumstances politically and within the community very light-hearted. And I just want to commend him as the speaker for the next year. I've learned so much from Michael in terms of civic responsibility, pride, and the issues that affect our borough, whether it's his love of football and championing football in the borough as a means of community cohesion and engagement, or whether it's wider issues and engaging with the Jewish community in particular, something very close to his heart. I really thank him, and I cannot think of a better person to be the speaker for the next year. I would also say that he is really hardworking, and his output as a ward colleague can't be challenged, and I thank him for his support in the last year, particularly as we've had Councillor Ricard away on maternity leave, and he will be an amazing speaker for the borough. So I'm really happy to second Councillor Desmond.
Thank you, Councillor Maoma. Do other members wish to say anything in support of the nomination? Are there any other nominations? Can we agree on the nomination of Councillor Michael Desmond to the
Agreed.
office of
Agreed.
to the office of
Agreed.
Agreed.
I declare that Councillor Desmond has been elected Speaker for the municipal year 2021-2022.
Okay. May I please ask Councillor Desmond to read out the words of the declaration of acceptance of office, please.
I, Councillor Michael Desmond, having been elected to the office of Speaker of the London Borough of Hackney, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
The new Speaker's consort for the municipal year 2021-22 will be Joy Solomon and Marianne Quankin. We now come to the exchange of the Speaker's chain. There will be a short pause in proceedings while the chain is being cleaned.
competition became the champions.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to be back. And thank you very much for those very kind words, Mayor Glanville and Councillor Mima. I'd like to invite Mayor Glanville to give the vote of thanks to the outgoing Speaker. Mayor Glanville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You caught me slightly. I expected you to be speaking beforehand, but anyway, Mr. Speaker, where to begin when it comes to thanking our outgoing Speaker, Councillor Adams? He ends the year having obviously presided over a 2-year period of unprecedented challenge for the council and our borough, and I think we'd all agree that he did an incredible job serving as Hackney Speaker during that challenging time. Throughout the pandemic, you, as Speaker, provided superb leadership and were constantly full of ideas and innovations to ensure that the civic life of the borough continued. We know, sadly, that the impact of COVID has not been equal in our borough or in our country as a whole, and it has exacerbated many existing inequalities in Hackney. And I think the 4 charities that you chose over the 2 years of your speakership illustrate the importance of supporting an authentic community response to these issues. In your first year, you supported Sister Space, Sporting Hackney FC and Ivy Street, and they continue to do incredible work. And it was an honour to join your tireless fundraising work for those 3 charities. But Mr. Speaker, you didn't stop there, nor did you just roll them over into a second year. You thought about what would make a difference as we faced COVID. And so you chose Hackney Food Bank, and you thought about those that struggle to put food on the table and prioritised your work to respond to that. And I know that you've already, I think, raised nearly £10,000 for the food bank to help tackle those issues. Across all the causes and charities you've supported and your 2 years of speakership, I understand that you've raised almost £30,000 for those good causes. And I'm sure all of us would like to thank you in the usual way for that. You've also, Speaker, worked closely with local community groups, charities, schools and other stakeholders to ensure that as a council, we're more accessible and open to our diverse communities and residents. And I don't think there's a single time where I've been out with you, Mr. Speaker, where you haven't offered either a tour of the town hall, a visit to meet me, or an opportunity to come and have tea with you in your parlour. That just shows your commitment to openness and engagement and that sense that this building is the people's building as you have been Speaker.
Councillor Glanville, Mayor Glanville, you're muted.
I was just reiterating, obviously, the amount of work and the amount of organisations that you have brought to the council chamber. And I know that you've also recognised overseas nurses from Homerton and Haifa. You've welcomed international dignitaries from the Mayor of Oslo to the Japanese First Secretary. And you've also presided over elections at Millfield School, welcoming their new Prime Minister and Cabinet. Only last Friday, you raised awareness to the issue of prostate cancer by holding an information evening, which I was honoured to attend, and I know many of us this evening joined. And along with Errol and others, you highlighted the importance of regular testing for men over the age of 45 and the need to continue campaigning on prostate cancer. You've worked to publicise blood donation amongst Black, African, Black, Caribbean and mixed heritage backgrounds, and those that are more likely to have the rare RO blood subtype that is vital for those living with sickle cell. Mr. Speaker, you also used the opportunity of your own vaccination for COVID-19 to encourage take-up when you went and got your vaccination at Bocking Street, clearly urging, like so many others, for those to take the vaccine when called. But Mr. Speaker, you've done all of that in terms of really important causes, but what people might not recognise or understand is just how fun you are. For a man that doesn't like to drink or generally eat in public, you're the consummate host, always sharing food, always ensuring our glasses are topped up, getting stuck into every community event you take part in. And as I found to my cost, in 2019, in the boxing ring, you have a mean punch. I think, like me, Mr. Speaker, you were also committed to ensuring that even when shielding, you were able to ensure that the civic show very much went on. I think neither of us can forget the many takes it took to get right our VE Day message last year. But you also ensured that Hackney continued to commemorate Remembrance Sunday, Armed Forces Day, Holocaust Memorial Day, Silver Sunday, Commonwealth Day, and Black History Month, to name but a few. The coronavirus pandemic has been a tragic and unprecedented time of loss for families and communities in this borough. And only last month, Mr. Speaker, you led the memorial and commemorations to all those who lost their lives, marking a year since the start of lockdown and the pandemic. You launched the online Book of Condolence, which is still on the Council's website, and you also joined me in marking the lives of public sector workers, such as Les and Paramjit from Housing Services, who lost their lives. Throughout your speakership, and indeed your 7 years as a councillor, Mr. Speaker, former Mr. Speaker, you've championed civil rights as well as promoted and celebrated the diversity of Hackney. And as a hard-working ward councillor, which you've brought into your speakership, and I think you've made sure that nothing has been left behind in terms of the work in Hoxton East and Shoreditch. Since 2014, you've been an incredible community figure, and you cannot walk down Hoxton Street with Councillor Adams without being stopped by someone that recognises him as a councillor, a resident, a former business owner, and you have been an incredible, passionate champion for apprentices and the power of digital change in Hackney. I know as Mr. Speaker, you will not be going down the flume as our first citizen at the New Britannia Leisure Centre, but I hope that our new Speaker, Councillor Desmond, as well as myself, will still defer to you and make sure that you're the first Hackney resident to go down that flume. I know you also have plans to finalise your fundraising for the food bank, and many of us are part of a joint team to take part in a sponsored walk in a few days' time, coordinated by Councillor Potter and Councillor Woodley and others. On behalf of a grateful council and a grateful borough, Mr. Speaker, thank you for everything that you've done. And I'd like to finish by thanking those that have supported you in supporting us, and that is your family. Madupe, Kamal, Lara, and of course Topsy have not only supported you, but ensured that you've achieved so much this year and made sure that so many of those online events that you've organised have gone so incredibly well. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to your family for everything that they've done. I'd also like to allow Councillor Rathbone to add a few more words to my thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Rathbone, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations, Michael, on your elevation to the speakership. I just wanted to say just a couple of words about Cam, because he's been an absolutely outstanding speaker for the last 2 years. And I should know, because I've been involved with civic mayors in Hackney for over 30 years. And he's faced up to the unusual situation of the pandemic happening in the last year with resourcefulness and creativity and great fortitude. And he became the first Hackney civic mayor to conduct meetings remotely online, which was quite a groundbreaking move. No troublesome councillors in the chamber for him during that time, because we were all online. But he has worked hard at tackling the not normal times we have been living through, with online music and speech events, so many events during his time. And the Book of Condolence, I think, was an excellent thing to do for the people of Hackney, and in so many other ways to continue to connect with the people of Hackney. And that's always the key to any successful speaker, connecting to our people. He's been a great team player, very collaborative in the way he works, and he's brought a warmth and a great sense of fun to all that he's been involved in. Well done, Cam, for completing 2 tough consecutive years in office. Thank you very much for all that you have done.
Thank you, Councillor Rathbone. I'd now like to invite the opposition group leader to say a few words.
If I may, Mr. Speaker, good evening. I'd like to reserve that for my response to the Mayor's statement later on, if I may. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you, Councillor Levy. Can we agree on the vote of thanks?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much.
Agreed.
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 We now, I hope no one said aggrieved there. It's agreed. That's right. We now come to the presentation to Councillor Cam Adams as the outgoing speaker. Will you rise, Cam, and we'll... Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And this is for your consort.
Thank you.
Well done. I'd now like to ask Councillor Cam Adams to respond to the vote of thanks.
Good evening, Lieutenant Colonel Morris, Mayor Glanville, MPs, councillors, freemen of the borough, and ladies and gentlemen. First, let me express my thanks to all those who have worked so hard to make sure tonight's AGM can take place, especially Mario, who is supporting with IT. Thank you, Mayor Glanville, for your kind words and your support during my tenure. The current COVID-19 pandemic has had a massive impact on the borough. I would like to pay tribute to all those who have worked tirelessly to provide key services to our residents during this time. I would like to give a special thanks to the NHS staff, frontline workers, for their invaluable work in keeping us safe. I would also like to express my deepest condolences to the families and friends of the over 500 people that we have lost in our borough to the pandemic, including council staff. I'm highly honored to have been chosen by my colleagues to serve the London Borough of Hackney in the role of Speaker for the past 2 years. I have completed 2 memorable years. The first year started, whether by faith or design, with a lot of changes and instability with the departure of Edda, the executive officer, to the Speaker shortly before I took office. This was quickly followed by Danny, who retired as Speaker's driver, mace bearers after 37+ years at the council, 30 years of which he was part of the backbone of the Speaker's office. I would like to put on record how much he was appreciated as an officer and support to many mayors and speakers. Then, just when things were getting back on track, the pandemic struck. The way we work, interact with others, and behave outside our homes has changed. Being the Speaker has been an amazing voyage of discovery. I find out things I never knew before, and it has given me a greater knowledge of our borough and the people who live here. I have met many people that I would never have dreamt of meeting, some of whom were new to me, and some of whom were old friends I became reacquainted with. I've updated you through my tenure with the engagement that I did. I have not been at a loss for things to do as Speaker. Every engagement was very special because it benefited someone. I was highly honored to take part in Armed Forces Day, Remembrance Sunday, Holocaust Memorial Day, Silver Sunday, Pastor Festival, Adult Social Services co-production event, hosted loads of schools, tours, and receptions, met with the Mayor of Oslo at the Town Hall along with the Lord Mayor of Westminster, hosted the Japanese First Secretary in the parlor, attended flag-raising events at the Town Hall for Commonwealth Day, Black History Month, and Pride. I was involved in a vigil for George Floyd. I held a virtual prostate cancer information evening, received the Brazilian Social Starter Group of female entrepreneurs, and overseas nurses from Omartin and IFA in Israel, hosted a reception for Jim Hayward, one of the oldest people in Acne at the age of 102 years old, and the 500th anniversary of the old Acne Church. The list is endless. In keeping with Acne's richly diverse makeup, we observe a host of significant celebrations such as Diwali, the Lunar Year, Hanukkah, Purim, Eid, Christmas, Easter, the Daima and Alevis culture, education and food day, Cheromin Engagement Day, Center 151 for Vietnamese, Laos, Cambodia, Mid-Autumn Celebration, hosted the Gypsy Roman Travelers at the Parlor, Caribbean Food Collective Food Program. Excuse me. I have cultivated a good relationship with my civic colleagues in our neighboring boroughs. I had the privilege of being invited to the unveiling of a statue of Oliver Tambo, the former president of African National Congress, ANC, the Frisbee Park 150th anniversary, the Central BCU Commander Commendation Ceremony at Tower of London, and London Borough of Tower Hamlet International Women's Day celebration. Some of the events I attended were incredibly fun, like Fun Day at the Tower Garden Estate, celebrating Windrush Day, Uprising Community Street Party, Acne Vibe Festival, When Lockdown Fun Day, Acne Carnival, Acne's Musical Gala and Mayor's Award, London International Choral Festival, Tea Dance for Dementia Festival, New Year's Parade, Costamonga Festival, Bike Around the Borough, Women's Festival of Football, CKC World Cricket Festival, Kobil Estate Fun Day, and Christmas Grotto, and many more. I will not let the moment pass without mentioning some of the highlights of my speakership, such as showing off our magnificent town hall to many dignitaries that visited our borough. Tour of the town hall was very popular with the public and schools, which gave me the opportunity to engage with the people from Acne and from elsewhere in the country. More than 600 people visited the town hall before the COVID-19 put a stop to it. I really enjoy presiding over citizenship ceremonies where the new citizens share their personal and emotional stories of what they went through before acquiring citizenship. I have raised around 30K for speakers' charity over the 2 years of my speakership. In my first year, I raised £19,178.20 for my 3 charities, Hackney Sporting Mind, Ivy Street Family Center, and Sister Space. In my second year, I raised approximately over 10K for Acne Food Bank and counting. I would like to thank everybody who has been involved in fundraising for these very worthy local charities, especially the Iowa in the city, Morgan Sandals, Tropical Sun Food, Pigs Here Beer Festival organizers, Acne Singers led by Lynn, and Shahid for organizing the Speakers Charity March. I would like to thank all the officers in the Mayor's and Speaker's office for their support and kindness. I would also like to thank Barrister Sean Wallace, the Dag Destroyer, for kindly hosting the Speaker's quizzes for the 2 years in a row, and my fellow councillors for their support throughout my tenure and for their kind words, especially Councillor Radbourne. My only regret was that I didn't get to use the gavel because members were always on their best behavior. I would like to take this opportunity to say a special thanks to Dawn, Andrew, Natalie, Louise, as well as Jane, who has written numerous letters of thanks and for doing Dry January for my charity. She has played a significant role in my fundraising activities. I would like to thank my ward colleague, Councillor Steve Race, for his support for the past 2 years, and Councillor Desmond, who has served as Deputy Speaker for the past 2 years, for his incredible support. I look forward to supporting him during his speakership. I would like to pay tribute to Colonel Morris, who will be retiring in a couple of months' time, for an incredible service to Hackney Borough for over 23 years. I really appreciate your support and guidance. I wish you a happy retirement. I would also like to pay tribute to Tim Sheets and Ann Canning, who will be retiring next month. Thank you for your service to the borough, and I wish you both happy retirement. Finally, a special thanks to my consort, my wife, Princess Modupe Adams, our children, and the rest of the family for their patience and unconditional support. You all can see more of me now. I'm proud to have served the people of Hackney. It has been a wonderful experience that I will always remember. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Adams. We now come to item 5, the election of Deputy Speaker for the municipal year 2021-22. I invite nominations for that position. As previously explained, in the event of more than one nomination, each nomination required has to be seconded, followed by which members can speak in support of each nomination. A vote is then taken in line with the majority voting procedure set out in Part 4, Para 21, which I hope you've all got in front of you, of the Council's Constitution. Are there any nominations? Deputy Mayor Bramble.
Thank you and congratulations, Mr. Speaker. I want to nominate Councillor Garcia.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Councillor Rathbone? Sorry, Councillor Spence.
Deputy Speaker, yes, I'm very keen to back the nomination of Councillor Garcia as the Deputy Speaker. If I could just say a few words. I've known Councillor Garcia for the last 3 years as a co-councillor in Haggerston, and as a young person born and bred in Hackney, I'm sure that she will be a role model, particularly to other young people in the borough, and for that and many other good reasons, I'm sure that she will be an excellent and supportive Deputy Speaker to yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spence. Do any other members wish to say anything in support of the nomination?
Mr. Speaker, if I could just...
Deputy Mayor Bramble.
Yes. It's my pleasure really to nominate Councillor Garcia to the role of Deputy Speaker of Hackney. She is born and raised in Hackney and has been active in politics from the young age of 16. And she's currently the youngest councillor. I know I won't name any colleagues on the call, Mr. Speaker, but they will be deeply jealous that he is no longer the youngest, Mr. Speaker. She is a huge advocate for young people and representing underrepresented groups within society. I am hugely proud, and the Mayor will argue that he is even prouder of Councillor Garcia because she actually was a former member of our youth parliament, and the Mayor and I have watched her grow and navigate young youth politics to the elected member that she is now, which is so brilliant. She is a youth officer by profession and a former youth worker, and continues to stand up and advocate for young people and disadvantaged young people, and is a strong advocate for social injustice. And Mr. Speaker, it's deeply, deeply disconcerting that we still live in a society full of racism, hate and intolerance. But until it's eradicated, I'm really proud that we have Councillor Garcia to stand up on our behalf. And actually, Mr. Speaker, you will remember back in July 2020, where she stood and passed a motion defining Islamophobia and put out clearly what we as a Labour Party thought of that, and it was passed unanimously. And I believe that her campaigning that she's done locally and nationally will continue to be something that she will do as Deputy Speaker and supporting you. I have no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that she will be an advocate for our community, this community, her community, and continue to defy and speak up and against social injustice, hate and intolerance. It will be a pleasure to watch all the work that she will be doing as Deputy Speaker.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Bramble. I think that was very well said. Are there any other nominations? Can we agree on the nomination of Councillor Garcia to the office of Deputy Speaker for 2021-2022?
Agreed.
Agreed. Pleasure.
Agreed.
I declare that Councillor Garcia has been elected Deputy Speaker for the municipal year 2021-22. Can you come up to the dais, please?
May I please ask the incoming Deputy Speaker to read the words of the Declaration of Acceptance of Office.
Thank you. I, Councillor Humera Garcia, having been elected to the office of Speaker of the London Borough of Hackney, hereby declare that I take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We're now to have a 2-minute break while Councillor Garcia puts on the necessary robe and the chain of office. I'd now like to invite Deputy Speaker Garcia to say a few words and announce the name of her consort.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I would like to start off by congratulating the incoming Speaker and the outgoing Speaker for his work over the past 2 years. I was born and raised in Hackney, along with my siblings, and this borough has given a lot of love and support to my parents when they arrived in hope of a better life. I am immensely thankful to be given this opportunity, and I look forward to supporting the Speaker in performing his civic duties and to showcase all the talent and positives that make our Hackney a brilliant borough. As a Deputy Speaker, I hope to enhance social inclusion within the community and help to bring people together at this particularly difficult time. I am conscious of the responsibilities that accompany this role of Deputy Speaker and the expectations that members have of a Deputy Speaker. I will bring commitment, integrity, and a genuine love of Hackney to the role. I am pleased to announce my consort, my mother, Najma Garasia, who is with me in this chamber tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to your mother as well.
Hurrah!
Item 6, apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Adajari. Are there any other apologies? No? Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Minutes of the previous council meetings. Are the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 24th of February 2021 agreed as a true and accurate record of proceedings? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agenda item 9, I'm going to say a few words. Well, firstly, Mayor Glanville, Freeman of the Borough, Mr. Siddiqui Bell and Colonel Morris, Chief Executive and distinguished online guests. It goes without saying, I'm delighted to have been elected as Speaker for 2021-22, and I hope this will be a much better time for our residents, staff, key workers, businesses, voluntary organisations and many young people who have experienced such disruption to their education during the pandemic. I'd like to congratulate my friend and colleague, Councillor Cam Adams, on his exemplary term of office. Due to COVID, it stretched into extra time. Fortunately, it didn't stretch into a Super League. Councillor Adams dealt with unprecedented circumstances with dignity and aplomb, using video, online and contemporary tools to make the most of his term of office. We have to say some sad farewells tonight. Members will be able to speak on this later. Tim Shields has been an excellent chief executive, dealing not only with the huge stress caused by the pandemic, but also having to cope with an outrageous and cynical cyber attack. He's guided staff through these tempestuous times with tenacity and determination and will be sorely missed. Anne Canning, one of our most distinguished senior officers, Director of Children and Education, is also sadly retiring. We wish them both well. Soon we'll also say au revoir to Lieutenant Colonel Roderick Morris, our Deputy Lieutenant, retiring after more than 23 years dedicated service. Now, during this time, Hackney is transformed into one of the most dynamic, vibrant and creative places, not just in the UK, but in Europe. Thank you, Colonel Morris, for all you have done. I'm greatly honoured to have been elected to this important post for a second time. That's once more than Herbert Morrison, an iconic figure in London, Stanley Clinton Davis, one of our most avid supporters, now of course Lord Clinton Davis, and my old friend Arthur Super, who was civic mayor in 1975-76. What a great name to have if you're campaigning for votes. Whatever the result, you'll always be a super candidate. I'd like to thank my parents, Lily and David, both born in Hackney, sadly no longer with us, for all of the help and support they gave me. My mother lived in classic mansions in Well Street, and my father came from Hoxton. My grandfather actually lived in Boston Street in Haggerston with several brothers and sisters who went to Maidstone Street School, which is now called Seabright, and I've arranged to visit there when circumstances allow. Sadly, there were hard times in my family. My great-great-grandmother, Anne Desmond, died aged 66 in 1890, spending the last 10 days of her life in Shoreditch Workhouse, possibly because there were some limited medical facilities there. And my grandfather's brother, James Desmond, died on the 26th of December 1914, aged 21, during World War I. Our life expectancy is much improved, but it's expectancy, not certainty, as we know from the pandemic. In my father's early days, birthday cards often ended with, "I hope you get to reach the old age pension." I'd like to thank my sister, Joy Solomon, who's agreed to be my consort, and my friend, Marianne Wagnin, who will assist. Joy worked for many years in adult education and has recently shown considerable talent for songwriting, which is useful since I want to work with City Hall to launch a competition for a new song for London. Maybe it's because I'm a Londoner, is just a little old hat, I think. My friend Marianne works as a specialist diabetes dietitian, that's a mouthful, at the Homerton. It's particularly apt for her to be involved, working as she does for the NHS. We owe an enormous debt of gratitude to all NHS staff, care workers and key workers who have worked above and beyond the call of duty during the pandemic. We salute their efforts, and during my tenure as Speaker, we'll arrange a suitable event to convey our thanks. Although my girlfriend, Indira Agonova, lives abroad, by some strange coincidence, the less she sees of me, the more she seems to like me. She's been very supportive and helpful and will hopefully spend some time here during the year. And I'd like to thank her. The Speaker has to remain politically neutral, particularly at council meetings. Whether that neutrality and tolerance goes as far as allowing Councillor Steinberger to challenge the minutes every meeting, you'll have to wait and see. Politics is the art of the possible. I think it's quite possible to discuss issues relating to minutes before meetings. I want full council to be interesting for members and get to the meat of the matter as quickly as possible, or if you're vegetarian, to the corn of it. As previously, I will use discretion to ensure meetings provide greater opportunities for backbenchers to speak. Not just for 1 minute at the end of meetings, let's save that for the radio show. Whenever possible, they'll have at least 2 minutes to say their piece. Of course, we can't all say significant things all the time, but we can say them quickly. E equals MC squared, for example, but we're not all Einstein. During my term of office, I'll be raising funds for 2 quite exceptional local charities, St. Joseph's Hospice, who provide fantastic palliative care and support for so many local people, and our very own cultural icon, the Hackney Empire, sadly darkened during the pandemic. Here we are sandwiched between the two. Let's make sure lots of funds are raised and we provide a very tasty filling to that sandwich. I'll also be arranging receptions in the parlour, when rules allow, for Anti-Knife UK, who I've supported for many years, the Cyber Smile Trust, which works to combat cyberbullying, and jointly with Stonewall, for Rainbow Laces, who support LGBT sports people and campaign on their behalf. I'm hoping to take the message on cyberbullying to schools when I'm able to visit them. It's amazing how armchair warriors feel able to be abusive on social media without regard to the emotional and psychological damage it can cause. If you haven't got anything nice to say, don't inflict harm writing something nasty. Being a good citizen also means being a decent cyber citizen. Science fiction has become science fact for many of us. Wi-Fi, internet, mobiles, IT. But there's a special way we can transfer matter from mind to mind. It really is unique. In fact, only one mind has to be alive. Have you guessed? Yes, it's called reading. Not Reading, that's in Berkshire. When I visit schools, I want to encourage reading. Books and libraries are just as important now as they ever were. Which brings me to a prop. We're online now, so it's easy to use props. They're more visible. Before, if you wanted to get on TV, you had to write your name in the dust on a plasma screen. My father's sister, Adele, who was with us in 2013 when I was first elected Speaker, passed away, sadly, but her first job was at Shoreditch Library. Recently, I found this book in my cabinet, Elements of Bookkeeping by W.O. Buxton from 1924, from Shoreditch Library. Maybe I should give it to Ian Williams, although I'm sure he knows all the details anyway. I'm sure my aunt acquired this legitimately. She was a very honourable woman of intense integrity. She became a medical social worker, actually. But on the off chance that there was a misunderstanding for its lateness, it says on this inside cover that the fine for lateness is 1 penny a week. So it was published 96 years ago. That's 4,992 weeks. A penny a week equates to £20.80 in what used to be called new money. So that's the first donation that I'm putting into our appeal fund. And here's the book. As Speaker, I will support twinning and help enhance our links. It enables us to celebrate international occasions and work in harmony with local government in other countries. Members should get involved. Despite Brexit, this is an internationalist council with a diverse population from all over the world. I'd like to congratulate our Deputy Speaker, Councillor Humera Garcia. She's been an excellent councillor and will be a brilliant civic representative as well. She has energy, commitment, and the ability to do a great job. I've been a councillor in Hackney since 1990. There was a brief break when the electorate of New River seemingly had a change of heart. I've represented Northwold, then Hackney Downs for more than 20 years now. But I first stood for a different council, actually, for Barnet, when I was 22. Unfortunately, the Conservative voters there didn't have a change of heart, but I did get a decent number of votes. On the campaign trail, I attended a school assembly, and one of the teachers told this story. He'd spent the summer holidays travelling far and wide, thoroughly enjoying the experience, and when the time came for him to return home, he thought, just for a moment, perhaps he should leave his job and continue travelling. He'd met lots of Scandinavians and Germans, maybe some people from Hackney. Travelling from place to place, they looked very happy and cheerful, and he was somewhat jealous of them. When he eventually returned, somewhat deflated, the day before going back to school, he was shaving and looked in the mirror and had this thought. It wasn't particularly profound, but it was meaningful. Wherever you are in the world, when you look in the mirror, the same face looks back at you. Whether you're in Thailand, India, Mongolia, or Hackney, ultimately, it's not where you are, it's who you are and who you are with. He felt very happy to return to school, rooted in his community, doing an important job. Where you live does matter. On a local social media page, a mother who just moved here from Portugal bemoaned the fact her daughter, who was turning 16 that week, wouldn't receive any cards or presents. No cards, no presents. Others in the group read of this, and several hand-delivered presents, including a fantastic red dress, which was something the young lady had set her heart on. So good things can happen on social media. In conclusion, I'll say this. Let's make lives in Hackney better for all, wherever people come from. Let them say as they look in that mirror, I will make the very best of my life and contribute to making this the best area for the whole community. Thank you. Now, we're having a brief comfort break, and some need to break the fast of Ramadan. So we'll be back, I think, in what, 5 minutes? 5 or 10 minutes. So if you can set your watches, we'll be back here in 10 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back. We're about to hear from Mayor Glanville. I just wanted to report to the council, very sadly, the press officer who was working at the council when I first became a councillor in 1990, Mick Gosling, very sadly died. I have sent a card to his widow, and I just want it minuted that we offer our condolences. Okay, agenda item 10, elected mayor's statement. Mayor Glanville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I echo your condolences on behalf of Mick and obviously his widow, Catherine. Congratulations, though, again on your return to the dais, and it's been nice to just pop round and see you and the Civic Party. I do hope that I will do better in the Speaker's quiz than I did in the past 2 years under Councillor Adams. It would be remiss of me not to also reference and welcome our Freeman and other distinguished guests, including Colonel Morris. I think in former Mr. Speaker's very warm and incredibly detailed speech about his work over the last 2 years, I think it just shows an incredible commitment to Hackney, as I suggested earlier in my few words on his speakership, but also how humble and self-effacing Councillor Adams is, and also what a huge loss that very rich civic life that he vividly brought to life from his first year in office, and how much we want to return to that in the weeks and months ahead. I want to also offer my congratulations to Councillor Garcia, an extraordinary journey from Hackney's Youth Parliament through a period where I got to know her, where she took a chance on a bright young thing called Councillor Glanville, all the way through to becoming one of our youngest councillors and now Deputy Speaker. She's an incredible example of modern Hackney, a formidable woman, a Muslim, an ambassador and an activist. And I look forward to everything you bring to the role, and have always, in all the work I've seen you do, sought to bring people together. I also echo what Deputy Mayor Bramble said about the motion you brought against Islamophobia at full council, and also what Councillor Spence said. She's not just a role model to young people, though. She's a role model to me, and I hope all of us. I would also like to extend my condolences to you and your family for the loss of your uncle, and to all of those in Hackney worried about their relatives in India as they face coronavirus, especially at a time of Ramadan. And I really do welcome your mum's consort and look forward to the exciting years ahead to members of our Civic Party. I'm really, as I said, you cannot replicate an AGM without being present, but a bit of jealousy of those that are in the council chamber this evening. And I hope that by the time we reach our June and autumn full council meetings, more of us can join you there, Mr. Speaker. 1 year on, though, thankfully this April does feel very different for Hackney, and I reference not for many other parts of the world, though, than a year ago when we were in our first lockdown. Last April, at our first virtual cabinet meeting, I read the name of the 12 Hackney residents who had died as a result of contracting coronavirus. We had at that point already started to lose vital members of our community, and to this day, I know that members of this council and our residents still mourn their loss. Residents like a local nurse at the Homerton, Michael Alua, and Homerton support worker Sophie Fagan, and I know many of us still remember and recall the loss of Rabbi Pinter, a former councillor, and also taxi drivers and bus drivers, Mr. Dogus and Mr. Nur. And on the eve of the International Memorial Day for workers, I think we recognise the contribution of all public sector workers during this crisis. Sadly, 1 year later from when we first met virtually, we've now lost 490 residents from coronavirus. Too many names to read out tonight, but I know all of us will think about those that we've lost, especially those in the second wave. The council has marked 1 year anniversary of the pandemic and lockdown with all of the things that both myself and the former speaker have outlined. And I urge people to continue to get in touch with us to talk about the stories of their loved ones as we collate and continue to archive the terrible impact that this crisis has had on us and the lives of Hackney residents. We'll be publishing a book this summer, pulling together also all of the creativity, though, that has flourished during lockdown. And we also want to tell those more positive stories about volunteering and all of those that have supported us through the pandemic. We hope that the collective efforts of remembrance and celebration will help all our residents process the last year as we look to the future. And we obviously remember what has been lost, but also that creative energy and Hackney spirit that got us through. And none of that is more true than the contribution of council officers and staff and the services they provide our borough. And I think all of us will want to thank them tonight. It's a year of incredible frontline and backroom service, where everyone in the organisation has contributed something to our collective response. It's impossible to name all of them, but I know that the Hackney Stars event that will be taking place virtually next month will help recognise some of those incredible contributions. And that goes for people that have been redeployed, stepping into roles that they've never had before, or thinking about those that helped set up the emergency food hub, all the way through to those that week in, week out were on our estates, on our streets, in our parks, and making sure that our borough was safe for our residents. 3 million items of PPE were provided to council frontline staff, teachers, local care workers, and those in the NHS. The Here to Help line, over 7,000 conversations with local residents about what they needed to help during this past year. And I'd like to pay a special tribute to the call centre staff that have risen to every single occasion asked of them, from contact tracing to helping with bereavement and befriending. And more recently, processing, obviously, support packages for those self-isolating. All those that have supported our businesses to reopen this month, and the millions of pounds worth of grants we continue to give to local businesses who are still closed and those that have worked to reopen. No one can fail to recognise the contribution of our waste and recycling teams, who continue to work through every single lockdown to keep our borough clean and safe. Social care workers are often at the front line, often ignored in normal times, but contributing to the care of our most vulnerable and keeping our residents safe. Our parks teams, keeping our parks open and clean. And I know that Deputy Mayor Bramble would want me to give a special shout out to our teachers, teaching assistants and school support staff. And obviously Councillor Woodley would be advocating on behalf of all of those working with special educational needs and our youth workers. It's impossible to name every council profession or council officer, but everyone has made an incredible contribution this year. I'd also like to thank our health partners and the NHS and that wider system, and pay tribute to the work of David Mayer, the recently departed director of City and Hackney CCG, for all of the work he did in that role and his coordination over the past year. And I know that Siobhan and Tracy, who are taking on that leadership role in the local NHS, will continue to lead that work. None of this, though, would have been possible with statutory organisations without community spirit. We've seen an incredible response from our residents, setting up networks of mutual aid, community resilience, whole new organisations, all supporting people out in their communities. And I know thousands of volunteers have been engaged, both for Hackney CVS and also Volunteer Centre Hackney. And whether they've taken part in food hubs, tackling the injustice of food poverty, or working to support our health system, they've made an incredible contribution. Our cultural sectors that you, Mr. Speaker, are so keen to champion by picking Hackney Empire, have done incredibly well out of recent funding rounds, but I know that that won't be enough to breathe life back into our cultural institutions. And I'll be working with Deputy Mayor Nicholson to ensure that all of our cultural institutions in the borough have our support to come back to life, and we'll be continuing to sustain our carnival groups and our museum in that work. The Hackney spirit, alive and well, and I thank everyone that has ensured that that can happen. The vaccine rollout continues, and I'd continue to urge everyone that is offered an opportunity to be vaccinated to go out and do that. We're 42 plus, I've got 1 year to go. I'm looking forward to that moment when that drops down to 41 plus, and I'm sure there are others on the call that are looking forward to that too. And we continue as a council with our GPs and local NHS services to support the rollout of vaccines. And I know all of us want to see more community work to ensure that we catch up with those marginalised groups and those that have been more hesitant to ensure that they get access to the vaccine. Huge shout out to the Vax Pack, Hackney Vax Pack. Anyone that's been to a vaccine centre will have seen the enormous contribution that they have made to helping people feel safe, people that have been nervous, people that have had mobility issues, looking after friends and family while people are being vaccinated. And there are no more fulfilling things I have taken part in this year than volunteering too. And I know that's experienced for many councillors on this call. I think Mr. Speaker talked about politics being the art of the possible, and we're really committed to that here at the council. And I know that we're all collectively working to rebuild a better Hackney. Many of the challenges that we faced before the pandemic still ring true now, but they have a greater sense of urgency behind them, and we must rise to that social, economic, and health challenge that face us as a generation. Tough times ahead still. Whether we're going to be protecting frontline services from future austerity, engaging with our communities in new ways, or supporting the local economy and our creative industries to rebuild, there's a huge task ahead, even though we recognise the hope that the vaccine brings. Mr. Speaker, you recognised, I think, a joint predecessor of ours, the Civic Mayor in Herbert Morrison, an iconic name from the past, but someone who did so much for our borough, and I won't mention politics, but our wider movement. Poignantly, though, it is 100 years since Herbert Morrison stood down as the Civic Mayor of Hackney. He went on to be the MP for Hackney South in the 1920s. And in a really timely way, we've discovered that one of his first questions in Parliament was on pollution in the River Lee. No surprise that an MP from Hackney would want to raise the question of the River Lee in Parliament. It is disappointing that 100 years later, we're still campaigning to see a River Lee that is clean and that supports human populations as well as the flora and fauna of our borough. He also went on, of course, to become leader of the House of Commons in the 1945 government, a government whose biggest task was rebuilding a better country following World War II. And I'm sure as we face the same challenge of rebuilding following a crisis, that we can learn an important lesson for what Herbert Morrison said, that we will rebuild London, we'll rebuild a fine Great Britain and a prosperous world. We go forward in this building as we hope and believe of a Britain that is free, democratic, efficient, progressive, public-spirited, a Britain whose material resources are organised in the service of the British people. I can think of no better redoubling statement than that from our illustrious predecessor. I finished, Mr. Speaker, back with culture in Oscar week. One of the last things I did before the final lockdown was to visit Castle Cinema on Chatsworth Road and see the incredible film Rocks. This last weekend, I got to watch Rocks again online and would urge anyone that hasn't had the opportunity to see it and what it represents. It is an absolute love letter to this borough and to the East End, a rare film set on a council estate that does not stigmatise or talk down. And that was the key priority of the creative team, from the director in Sarah Gavron through to those that cast the film, and also ensured that true stories of East End resilience and celebration were told. It's a moving and powerful story, and it is brimming with talent and creativity from our borough in front of the lens and behind. I'm so pleased the film has started to receive international acclaim. It was nominated for 7 awards at the BAFTAs, including Outstanding British Film. And of course, most of all, the lead actress and Hackney resident was recognised, Bouquet Bakray was recognised as a true rising star with her own BAFTA in her own right. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for all that you're planning to do. I think a man that's been clearly thinking indeed about what you want to achieve as Speaker over the next year to come. And this is not a normal AGM, but I look forward to working with you as we return to our hybrid meetings and our civic life, and ensuring that our borough rebuilds in the spirit that Herbert Morrison told us in 1945. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Glanville. I now invite the opposition group leader, Councillor Levy, to respond.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Speaker and distinguished guests. Firstly, I would like to offer my warmest congratulations on your appointment as Speaker of the Borough. Because of the effects of the pandemic, it was unfortunately delayed by a full year. And I know you will wear the chain of office with dignity and distinction. And I look forward to working in collaboration with you and your team during the coming municipal year. Additionally, I'd like to tender a very sincere thank you to the outgoing Speaker, who so graciously represented the Council for the past 2 years during the darkest periods of its history, where the effects of the pandemic has left the bereft of loved one, and he provided words of solace and consolation to on behalf of us all. I was very pleased to learn that the sum of approximately £10,000 was raised for Hackney Food Bank, the Speaker's nominated charity for 2020-2021, which went some way to support our most vulnerable and elderly residents during the lockdown. Mr. Speaker, I want to offer here my deepest condolences to Her Majesty the Queen and the royal family on the passing of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, who devoted so much of his long and varied public life to dedicated service and was associated in various capacities with 992 organizations, I understand. And by the time he retired from public life, he had completed over 22,000 solo engagements. He was, however, I believe, best known, as it's been stated here this evening, for the award scheme to which he gave his name when it was made a national award in 1956, a scheme that has transformed the lives of so many young people in this country and has now spread across the world to over 140 countries. It gave him great pleasure, whenever possible, to personally present the Gold Award to proud recipients. And I'm particularly pleased to note that this year, 15 young people who are either resident in Hackney or go to school here are later this summer embarking on an expedition to Snowdonia to complete their Gold Award, as COVID permitting. And I know members would wish to join me in wishing them every good fortune. The Duke of Edinburgh was the longest serving consort of a reigning British monarch, but apart from all else, he was a source of unwavering support to Her Majesty the Queen during their 73 years of marriage, a proud father, grandfather, and latterly a great-grandfather. He is an irreplaceable loss to the royal family, to this nation, and to the entire Commonwealth. Mr. Speaker, although you won't thank me for saying so, I have to take this opportunity to offer a special thank you on the head of the agenda item. A thank you and my best wishes to our outgoing Chief Executive, Tim Shields, who, as you're all aware, is retiring from the Council at the end of next month. Tim was probably the first officer of the Council that I met when, acting as a returning officer, he declared my election to the Council in December 2007. And since that time, and certainly over the past 10 years during our one-to-one meetings, I came to recognize the responsibilities that Tim shouldered, ably supported by senior management, overseeing an organization that delivers approximately 700 different services. During the time of Tim's stewardship, this council has undergone transformative change. And his calm and measured way, Tim organized a successful restructuring of top-heavy management to a more slimmed-down, efficient service that lost none of its effectiveness. Tim supported a close relationship with staff and through his acclaimed innovative roadshows, and latterly, he led the council's response to COVID-19. Throughout this challenging period, Tim had the well-being of staff often working remotely and in isolation in the forefront of his mind. And through the arrangement of well-being surveys and live stream engagement where officers could ask questions directly to senior management, staff were reassured that management cared deeply about their well-being. Personally, although my meetings with Tim were of a general nature, nevertheless, when I felt it was important to bring him individual casework, he readily agreed to look into the matter. And I know that there are residents in this borough, were it not for Tim's discreet intervention, would have faced entirely different outcomes from that was expected. On a lighter note, I asked Tim recently what he planned to do post May 31st. His one word, tongue-in-cheek response was sleep. Tim, you've definitely earned it. However, I suspect your time in public service is not done, and I fully expect you to reappear on the public stage at some point. So thank you once more for your constant support throughout my term of office. It was never taken for granted and is deeply appreciated. Mr. Speaker, I would like to finish here actually by repeating a quote from the Emeritus Chief Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, who so sadly passed away last year, that I think is particularly appropriate this evening. And I quote it in full: "To know you made a difference, that in this all too brief span of years, you lifted someone's spirits, relieved someone's poverty or loneliness, or brought a moment of grace or justice to the world that would not have happened had it not been for you. These are as close as we get to the meaningfulness of life, and they are matters of every day rather than an heroic virtue." Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor Levy. That was profound, that statement from Lord Sacks. We're moving on now, and hopefully we'll be able to speed up so we can finish on time, although sadly there's no reception afterwards or no drinking in the parlour, but that's life. I'd now like to invite Mayor Glanville to speak to item 11, the scheme of delegation composition of the Cabinet, subcommittees and champions. Mayor Glanville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As set out, all I would just add is that under item 3 in the introductory note under 3.2, it obviously says quite correctly that the council is required to note that the scheme of mayor's delegation, but the review was asked by myself because I noticed that alongside the constitution it needs to be modernised. So I just want to align the two pieces of work over the course of this municipal year and ensure that they're fit for purpose. Obviously 3.1 outlines why the report is here. I think it's well known that we've had, through very happy personal circumstances of former deputy mayors being elected to Parliament and also starting new families, that there's been a period of change. And I welcome all the new cabinet members, mayoral advisors to their roles respectively this evening. But I won't prolong us any further in going into great detail about the shifts and changes, as I say, as set out.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. Will the council agree the following? Note the mayor's scheme of delegation as set out in Appendix 1. Note the composition of cabinet, its subcommittees, including the change of name for Cabinet Procurement Committee to Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing Committee, and champions as set out in Appendix 2. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
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 Thank you. Item 12, establishment and composition of the council's committees and commissions. Members are requested to note the revised Appendix 1 to this report. Can I invite the Chief Executive, Tim Shields, to introduce the report?
Mr. Speaker, as set out.
Thank you. Will the council agree to the following recommendations? Approve establishment of the committees and overview and scrutiny commissions as set out in paragraph 3 of the report. Approve the membership of the committees and overview and scrutiny commissions as set out in the revised Appendix 1 attached to this report, and approve the nominations for the chairs and vice chairs of these committees and overview and scrutiny commissions as set out in Appendix 1 to this report to enable the committees and commissions to consider these nominations at their first meetings. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 13, nominations and appointments to outside bodies. Will members agree the appointments and nominations to outside bodies on behalf of the council as listed in Appendix 1? Is that agreed?
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you very much.
Agreed.
We come now to the vote of thanks to the outgoing Chief Executive and Returning Officer. You'll be aware the Chief Executive, Tim Shields, will be retiring on the 31st of May after nearly 19 years at Hackney Council, almost 14 as Chief Executive. I'm sure you'd like to join me in thanking Tim for his years of devoted service and wishing him all the very best for the future. I'd like to invite Mayor Glanville and the Leader of the Opposition to lead the vote of thanks. I know that Councillor Levy said a few words, so he may want to forego that privilege, following which I know some of you will wish to speak. Can I ask that you keep your contributions as short as possible so that anyone who wishes to speak is able to do so? Mayor Glanville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I have a sneaky suspicion, while I cannot see clearly Tim's face, that he will both enjoy and dislike this in equal measure, because while leading an organisation, he's actually quite a shy and humble man. And that goes to the heart, I think, of his public service. And Councillor Levy, I think, made me recall the moment all of us have been through, nearly all of us, that our first time taking office here in the borough will be Tim handing us the documents to sign, whatever office we now hold. And so he has been an ever-present figure in our roles in elected office. But 20 years ago, I think when Tim joined the organisation, this building and so much in the council faced significant challenges, and so much of it did not function or work as it should. And over the past 2 decades, he has led an organisation through a massive period of transformation for the better, where, and I've got my prop, Mr. Speaker, he helped us win this award from the LGC as the council of the past 20 years in 2016. And he did that by his leadership and the team that he built. He responded to the political challenge that was set out by my predecessor and all of you that were on the council at that time and have come since. And he's been absolutely instrumental in leading the transformation and redefining, most critically, what good local government looks like with strong and effective leadership, and how it can deliver for residents, and some of the most deprived residents and the most disadvantaged residents in the country. Previously, those two last things were seen as an acceptable byword for why services couldn't be good, and Tim has never accepted that, and I thank him for it. He has spent, though, as we used to remind our apprentices and sometimes more informal staff groups, the entire time I've been alive on this earth in local government and in public service, working not just for Hackney, but for Lambeth before that. And I think he values the frontline contribution of our staff through getting involved in inductions, getting involved in supporting our apprentices, because he remembers what it is like to walk through the door of a large organisation at the start of their career, but also what that open door can deliver for you in later life. You can literally go from what might be now called somewhat pejoratively an entry-level job to leading an organisation as a chief executive. And I think that's a really powerful message he sends out to every single member of Hackney staff. Over the past 14 years as chief executive, 19 serving the council, Tim has always been ambitious for Hackney and for our residents. And what have we seen? A huge improvement in education standards, building more council housing, now tackling the climate emergency, and as I said, that real strong commitment around employment and skills. He also helped define and support the mayoral model as head of the paid service, and responding to that challenge of a new form of local government and making sure that it works and that it functions and that it delivers for the people of Hackney. He's wearing the robes of the town clerk this evening, which again, another part of the work that he does, obviously, as a returning officer and, as I say, head of paid service. And I echo really everything that Councillor Levy has said. He's a strategic thinker, he's a strategic leader of place, but he also is a problem solver. And anything that goes in his book that he takes into meetings, he will take away and consider and respond to. And he does that in a very deliberative way, which I think all of us that have worked with him at senior level value. There are no nuclear codes in Hackney when you become a senior leader, but be under no mistake, as Councillor Levy has suggested, a huge amount happens behind the scenes. Whether he's acting as gold in Hackney or gold across London, he's had to respond to challenges, including the tragic helicopter crash in Vauxhall a couple of years ago. And he leads and he's well respected across London's local government for his abilities around emergency leadership. He has, as has been hinted, also led our COVID response. And I won't forget the moment of the fire alarm on the Monday before lockdown, when we were all evacuated from this building, and where I started to listen to the first ministerial webinar from my iPad in the council car park, sat on our emergency response bunker, and then came back in and listened to the end of that broadcast, huddled around the iPad in my office before social distancing with Tim. And Tim was really clear when lots of people rushed to do things. He had 3 sound steers and pieces of advice for me, his leadership team, and the organisation. This isn't going to last weeks or months. This is going to last for years. And when others are going to talk eventually of recovery, he spoke of the next phase. He knew we were in this for the long haul and made us think and caution in how we acted through that crisis. And I think that's made Hackney stronger, and even stronger when you think we were to face a cyber attack as well. He also said, don't start anything that you don't know how to finish. So we did start things we didn't know how to finish, but we always thought of how to soft land them. So we got into the business of humanitarian response in helplines, doing things way beyond what we ever did. But we then very quickly strategically thought about how to mainstream them and make sure there was no hard landing. He also said, and I hope he's going to take his own advice into what I know will be an active retirement, but in the short term, make sure you take a break, take your annual leave, reflect that it is the long haul, and if you don't, you will burn yourself and the organisation out. 3 very sound pieces of advice, I think, go to the heart of his style of leadership and how he focuses on staff and institutional resilience. His leadership has meant the council has been able to support us through this crisis, because that is how he approached the start of this crisis. And everything we celebrate and talk about has only been possible because of that careful consideration of every single step, whether it's been around rough sleeping and emergency housing, food and essential supplies, that finance and business support, and obviously the wider support for the health system. So not only in the past year, but over 20 years, he leaves behind a huge legacy of which we're all so proud. He's also led the organisation through good and bad times. The first period of his leadership with Mayor Pipe and the previous administration, we saw an expansion of the state, huge investment in the capital infrastructure of this borough under a previous government, and then the challenge of 11 years of austerity. He dealt with both. There are very few leaders in local government that are comfortable leading through good times and bad to each equal strength. When I faced what was an astonishing year in my personal and public life in 2016, he was there to lead me through those first few steps of leadership, recognising when I was making mistakes, recognising when I needed a mentor, but also responding to the political mandate I would win in 2016 and being very ready to, we're in pre-election period, but respond to that manifesto and all of that work I talked about in our award-winning skills work. He was ready to present through those roadshows that Councillor Levy said in a new administration. So constantly rising to new challenges. And his favourite phrase that came out of one of those roadshows in response to a challenge from a member of staff is, "We will never manage decline. We're ambitious even in those difficult times." He's also been a supporter of inclusive leadership and that corporate importance of recognising that Black Lives Matter and anti-racism. He was very comfortable ensuring that we had a political, civic and office response to that crisis and that challenge last year. Now, we'll all know, and it might be on display next to Mr. Speaker, that Tim has a knowing smile, and that can go in 2 different directions. And I'm not going to explain that to the residents this evening. But he's always, as I said, worked through tensions, been a problem solver. And as I know both deputy mayors would want me to say, Councillors Nicholson and Bramble supported them as well as other cabinet colleagues with their challenges. A huge belief in public service and a healthy scepticism of central government and the latest fad. And on a personal note, returning, I will always thank him for his discretion and the ability to bounce ideas off. 4 decades of public service. I wish you all the best, Tim, with whatever comes next. There's still 6 weeks with you at the helm and an election to get through. And I hope after all of that, we can celebrate more with you in the usual way, and just thank you for everything that you've done. And my final remark is the way he says the words Mayor Glanville in so many different ways, with obviously the deepest respect, but also can tell me off like no one other than my mother can with that phrase. So thank you very much for everything that you've done. And I'm really pleased to inject this note of thanks for your 40 years in public service, 20 at Hackney. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Glanville. I think Councillor Hanson's cat has also joined in the meowing applause. Good to see appreciation of a feline nature. Councillor Levy, did you want to add anything?
Mr. Speaker, or rather unusually, I got my response in first. So please forgive me if I forego a second bite of the cherry. So I'll let you get on with the agenda, and I'm sure other members would want to contribute. And so I don't want to take their time up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Levy. I'd like to invite Councillor Bramble to say a few words, followed by Councillor Odds, Councillor Rathbone, Councillor Etty, Councillor Patrick, and Councillor Stops. And if you can all be succinct and to the point, because I know that Tim doesn't want to be here for another 23 years. Deputy Mayor, actually it says Councillor Bramble, Deputy Mayor Bramble, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I won't prolong the meeting, and Mayor Glanville has eloquently put forward so many kind and very true remarks. I suppose two things that I will say about Tim. I'm always struck by his openness to challenge, and there were moments of challenge, but in our working relationship, but also struck by his continued passion and desire. I often use a phrase, Mr. Speaker, Hackney heart, and Tim, through his leadership, has demonstrated true Hackney heart in the fact of whether it's talking very generally about the community or if it's talking at a very high strategic level in terms of the direction of travel. He has always had the heart of residents and a real ambition for the borough, and that's something that I will take away. Just wishing you well and good sentiments in your future, Tim.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bramble. Councillor Odds, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations on your appointment. I'll be trying to be brief as I can. Firstly, I would like to say that I did not discuss with Councillor Levy what I'm going to say, and he didn't discuss with me what he said. However, you might notice some similarities, and Mayor Glanville said everything that needed to be said, to be quite honest. I was first elected in 2004, and the leader of the council at the time was Max Galler, followed by Penny Thompson, and followed by Tim. So when Tim was first became chief executive, a few people said, it seems as if you have to be called Tim to become a senior officer in the council. Because I believe at that time there were 3 levels of Tim leading the council and the finance department. But my greatest appreciation that I can say is I don't know what Tim's political leanings are. I know all council officers have to be politically neutral, but he's managed to hide his very well. He's obviously followed the mayor's policies, but in a politically neutral way. He's had his own agenda, obviously, where he wanted to lead the borough. As chief executive, he has a stronger role as the mayor, obviously, even stronger. And his obvious attitude of leading is one that we can all admire. The 2 previous chief executives before him went on to become chief executives of other boroughs and various other organisations. As Councillor Levy said, I'm sure this is not the last we'll see of Tim on the public stage. He has so much to offer. I'm sure his senior officers and other officers appreciate everything he's done for the borough, the way he's led all of them and brought them on from whatever positions they had to where they are now. It's and I'm just going to finish. Well, first of all, I want to wish you all the best in the future in your amply deserved retirement, although I doubt it will be an inactive retirement. And I want to finish also with a quote from former Chief Rabbi Lord Sachs, who, as Councillor Levy said, we so sadly lost at a young age earlier this year. I remember 27 years ago, he gave a speech at the first anniversary of the death of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, a leader of world Jewry. And in this speech, he said, good leaders create followers. Great leaders create leaders. And to my mind, looking around the senior executive team, those that have been promoted from within, I think that describes Tim.
Thank you very much, Councillor Odds. Councillor Rathbone?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I couldn't actually put anything better about Tim than what the Mayor has said already, a really excellent speech about Tim. And I know that Tim is a very quiet man, but quiet but strong, I would say. I could hardly let it go by without just saying something about a person who's been so important to our history of recent times, not just the council, but also Hackney itself and its people. He came in around 2002 as finance director. And I remember the horrendous problems of the late 90s and the early 2000s. And the council was still in quite a mess with Max Caller, then chief executive. And they were beginning to refloat the ship and turn it around. But I'm not quite sure if Tim knew what he was heading into. But he took the challenge in his stride. And that's so typical of Tim. And of course, years later, he won. And our ship sails on in great strength. I think we've been extremely lucky in having such a person working for us and with us. Because of him and others in his teams down the years, Hackney stopped being a basket case, as Jules Pipe used to say, and started to become the fastest improving authority in the country. And an award from Local Government Chronicle, Phil mentioned earlier. Our financial stability and general stability, despite all the attacks of austerity in the last 10 years, has continued, steered by Tim's steady, guiding hand. And I would describe him, having known him now for all of those years, since 2002, as level-headed. But sometimes he has a bit of a laugh. He has got a sense of humour, but he's always firm and unflinching in the face of setbacks. And he's always been ready to listen to councillors and to get things sorted. We couldn't hope for a better chief executive than Tim. So you can be sure that we will miss you, Tim. And I know you're probably a little bit embarrassed now, but we really will. You have done us a great service and the people of Hackney a great service. And I wish you all the very, very best for the third age.
Thank you, Councillor Rathbone. Councillor Etty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations. What can I say? It's very difficult to follow what previous speakers have said, but I'd like to say a big thank you to Tim, because when I was elected a councillor in 2014 and I became a deputy speaker immediately, sincerely, I had no clue what to do. But being in that meeting with Tim, and even when I became the speaker as well, I could remember sitting there and having a lot of post-it notes being passed over to me whenever I make mistakes, and his calming attitude in terms of his leadership style, the way he corrects when you make mistakes, I really admire that. And I normally, in most cases, I just tend to watch him and I learned a lot with regards to the way he conducts things at the meetings. Honestly, Tim, it's been a great pleasure and a great honor knowing you and having to work with you within that short period. Thank you for your wisdom that you have brought into the London Borough of Hackney. Sincerely, I really wish you much joy and happiness and happy retirement. And one thing I would want to say, since Hackney cannot be where it is without you, I think we can start with this. If we could have our own Hackney Walk of Fame, there must be a public recognition for Tim Shield. And I hope colleagues and Mr. Speaker will agree with me that that would be something we should really consider about. Thank you, Tim, for all the hard work, and congratulations. Happy retirement.
Thank you very much, Councillor Etty. Councillor Sharon Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As people probably know, I've been around Hackney a long while now and seen many chief execs come and go. But I must say, I think Tim's been an excellent chief exec. He's done wonders in helping both Mayor Piper and Mayor Glanville turn Hackney round with his great team of officers who he's brought on. I also like to know that Tim has worked tirelessly in the background across Hackney with our partners, trying to install great values in some of them whose values don't always mix the same as ours, in things like race, dealing with racial inequality and fairness. I know Tim's worked really hard on these matters. I just think he's been a great chief exec. He's been a great team player, and I just wish him well. And he's also been a great supporter of Living in Hackney Scrutiny Committee, where he's come on a couple of occasions to speak to us about his work. So I'd just like to wish him well, and I'm sure whatever he does in the future, he would do it excellently and be a great asset to whatever or whoever he does it with. So enjoy a bit of time off, Tim, but I'm sure you'll be wasted if you sit at home doing nothing. You have a great brain and you're a great person. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Stopps. Vincent, you're on mute. Can you unmute, please?
Oh, sorry, I'd started my speech. So congratulations, Councillor Desmond. Just to think about Tim for 1 minute. From one retiree, recent retiree to another, sitting around doing nothing's not such a bad thing. I've done a bit of it now, and it's great fun being able to do exactly what you want when you want. So do enjoy. I wanted to reflect on one of the most important things I think that Tim's contributed to this borough, and that is our financial stability. Ian talked about it. If I can reflect for 1 minute on my first memory, really, of Hackney Council, it was going into the then Chief Executive's office and meeting, Tim will remember him perhaps, I can't remember his second name, Bernard. Bernard was the man from the Treasury. Her Majesty's Treasury had representation in Hackney Council Chief Executive's office because, as we've all said, it was a financial disaster. And I think it's really, you know, over all these years now, I remember all manner of cabinet papers telling us about our future financial stability or whatever, or plans, and that allows us to do everything we can. If we want to protect vulnerable people and educate kids and put street trees in and all these things, we've got to have a budget that balances, and Hackney probably knows that better than anybody else, and so it really is a testimony to over all those years. I don't think we've really had a time when we didn't know where we were financially. So huge congratulations. And thanks to Tim for allowing us to make the decisions that we can make, and to help us. You know, we'd always like to help more people, and would like more money, and would like to spend more, but you can't. And so that's a secure foundation. I think is a legacy that we can thank Tim for, and I'm sure we'll strive to keep it going and retain good financial management in the council. So thank you, Tim. Enjoy your retirement.
Thank you, Councillor Stopps. Those were all very eloquent and meaningful. I'd like to ask Tim now to say a few words in reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I wasn't quite sure how I was going to feel at this point in time. So, Mr. Speaker, Mayor Glanville, councillors, I know that we've got Freeman of the Borough listening in and Lieutenant Colonel Morris as well, and a few regrets that we're doing, well, many regrets about doing this virtually this evening. Colonel Morris always turned up with his spurs and sword, full regalia for full council, which I always insisted upon, which we used to rib each other about. Thank you for those kind words. I've been lucky enough in my career to work in some wonderful organisations with some fantastic people. When I came to Hackney in 2002, people thought it was the wrong move for me. People actually tried to talk me out of it. A number of those people then actually thought, well, maybe I should go and work there. It sounds actually quite exciting and quite challenging. My almost 19 years here, I was reflecting on the fact that that is almost a third of my life that I have given to Hackney, and it's been extremely rewarding, and I'm truly grateful that I've had the opportunity to work in such a fantastic borough and to lead such an amazing organisation. It's not always been easy, but the challenge is what's made it so exciting and so rewarding. I'm not going to go through the list of challenges and the list of stories and all of those things that have been achieved over the last 19, 20 years. Many of us know the stories of what Hackney was like in 2002. Of course, can't do this job without working with the Mayor, the Cabinet and all councillors and our partners from both other public sector organisations, voluntary sector and our communities in the borough. So I thank you all for allowing me to be Chief Executive and supporting me in what I do. I can't do it without all of you. It's essential that we work together to deliver those better outcomes for the people of Hackney, for our businesses, for our communities, for our visitors. And I think over the last 19 years of my tenure, we've achieved that. And I ask you, all of you, to carry on with that hard work and to make sure we continue to make that difference. I leave behind a changed borough and an organisation that I have had the honour to shape and to work with, and an amazing set of people with strong values and dedication to public service. I can't thank all of the staff at Hackney enough for making this job such a pleasure. Every day, you all deliver amazing services, and despite the enormous challenges of the last year, you continue to amaze me and deliver the best services in the country. So thank you to everyone. I also want to record my thanks to my management team, both present and past. I can't do it without a management team and a set of managers in this organisation who have my complete trust. I have my complete trust that they will always come in, day out, and do their best. And they always do, and always do the right thing. So thank you to all of them, because again, I couldn't have done it without them. And last of all, because I know she's listening, I can't do this without the support of my wife. This is a tough job to do. Some of you may also know that she's Chief Executive of another local authority. So that doubles the challenges in our household. But she's been hugely supportive to me, and I simply couldn't do this job also without her. So thank you. It's been an honour and a privilege to serve Hackney, for the last 19 years and serve local government for the last 40. Thank you very much, and there'll be another time for a different type of speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give a virtual round of applause. Thank you so much, Tim. That was very well said. Now, the appointment of Acting Chief Executive, Returning Officer and Head of Paid Service. Members are asked to note the reasons for lateness of this report as set out in the agenda. Will Council agree the following recommendations? 1. Approve the appointment of Ian Williams to the position of Acting Chief Executive, Head of Paid Service and Returning Officer at the London Borough of Hackney from 1st of June 2021. 2. Note the appointment of Dawn Carter-MacDonald as Director of Legal and Governance Services and Monitoring Officer. And 3. Delegate authority to the Director of Legal and Governance Services to take any further action necessary to give effect to the contents of this report. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Speaker.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Agreed.
As you know, Anne Canning, Group Director for
Agreed.
Children and Education, is retiring at the end of May. Anne has been at Hackney for 6 years, joining us as a Director of Education in 2015. Prior to this, she worked extensively in the education sector, both as a teacher and senior local government officer. I'm sure you would wish to join me in wishing her well, and I'd like to invite any members who might wish to say a few words to indicate now. Deputy Mayor Bramble, would you like to say something?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm so disappointed that I can't see Anne on my screen, but when I say I've prepared a 20-minute speech of adulations to her, I miss having the opportunity to see her cringe and turn red and feel deeply embarrassed. So, Mr. Speaker, I won't prolong the meeting for 20 minutes, although it would be very easy to speak of that length of time, because the sense of character and leadership and commitment that Anne has brought to Hackney truly, truly makes me proud. She has dedicated the last 30 years of her life to education, children's social care and young people. The last of those 6 years is here at Hackney, where she's seen the organisation go through many different iterations of change, but always ensuring that we remain aspirational, forward-thinking and pioneering, and always thinking differently how we can deliver the services that our residents, children, young people and our families rightly need and deserve. I want to thank her for her keen interest in me and my well-being and supporting what I do inside the borough and everything that I have the privilege of doing nationally outside the borough, and is always a strong advocate for all that I'm doing and champion in that. Anne and I relish the opportunities to put the world right, Mr. Speaker, in our pre-meets before the meetings and our debriefs after meetings, and often think that if we were given the world for a few days, the difference that we believe we could make, not because that we think we're super brilliant, but just the sheer passion and drive that happens in those conversations, and that I will truly miss. Her sheer dedication, really thoughtful and thought-provoking, Mr. Speaker, and just methodical in everything that she does and brings to the table. Her friendship, I would say, over the last years will be truly missed, and her commitment to her staff team is incredible, thinking about their health, their well-being. And I know through the pandemic, while we checked in on one another to make sure that we were okay, we spent a lot of time making sure that the staff team were well supported and they had a place to come to and speak to Anne, either it was privately or systems were in place. And I always remember that. And the discussions around responding to children and young people and families through the pandemic have just been overwhelming. The ability to have her on the end of a phone, a text over the weekend, you know, it really shows her dedication beyond the role of a 9 to 5 or maybe a 10 to 10 as a director. So it's with warm thanks that I thank her for her commitment and wish her well in her retirement. Councillor Stott talked about being able to do what you want when you want to do, but I know that the role of retirees has evolved now, Mr. Speaker, and people just retire and stop working to take up other ambitions and hobbies in different ways. And I'm sure Anne will find some other incredible ways to dedicate to the wider community, because that's just the essence of who she is. So Anne, I wish you well and will relish opportunities until you leave to speak about you and embarrass you deeply. And I'm just so sorry that we're not in full council, that I could see you, but equally maybe a little bit enjoy making you a little bit uncomfortable. But you should be very proud of all that you've done for Hackney. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bramble, and I assure you Anne did appreciate your comments. Mayor Glanville, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The hidden agenda item, I texted Anne to come back because I think she may have had another engagement. So I'm really pleased that she's back with us, Mr. Speaker. I was trying to attract your attention under the last item. I'd just like to extend my congratulations, obviously, to Ian and Dawn on their appointments, and also they thank all the members that have been involved in recruitment over the past few weeks and months at every level of the organisation, because as Tim alluded to in his speech, you know, the senior officers of the council are appointed by the members of the council, and that process is something that I know is really important to them and to us, and that's what that report represents. So really congratulations to Ian and Dawn. I'd also like to welcome Helen Woodland to her first full council meeting. I know she's attended Cabinet before, but she is our new Director of Adults and Health Integration, and a warm welcome to her. And I think it goes to the heart of what we're saying tonight about the team that Tim has built throughout his time here. And so moving on to saying goodbye to Anne, and I think Deputy Mayor Bramble said it really well. Anne is one of the few people that when she asks you how you are and what is going on, she actually means it and wants to reply and is really cares about it. It's not just a different way of saying hello. She's really interested in your well-being, what's going on in your life, and responding to that. It is also a very disarming meeting tactic, as I also find out when we catch up one-to-one, because if I'm wanting to talk about one thing, I end up talking about something completely different. I think Anne also, like Tim, you know, at the start of this year, landed me with quite a series of challenges with their retirement notice, and I know both of them are likely to go on to other things, but I also know that they both deserve a rest. I think it was Ian that you talked about, or was it Harvey, that talked about everybody being called Tim at one point in the organisation. It now feels that everyone is called Anne or Annie, but we're losing the most significant Anne in our lives, and she's led a very difficult and challenging period, I think, in our system, because we have continued to have to face challenges in education, challenges around Ofsted, the challenges we always have. And I know, Tim, one of your lasting legacies is the Integrated Gangs Unit, but responding to youth violence and the challenges that our young people face. All of these issues are things that Anne is incredibly passionate about. And both her and Annie, who she recruited, are, and I think this is a change, as interested in those that don't go to Russell Group universities as those that do. And sometimes that can get lost in the debates and discussions we have and the challenges we face as a council. But as someone that has worked their professional lives in Camden, Hamlets and Hackney, I know that Anne is really passionate about that achievement for our young people and families. And both Deputy Mayor Bramble and I will know there is no more chilling call that you can get than when we've lost a young person in this borough, and whatever cause that has led to that loss. And Anne is always there when that happens to lead that response and remind us of our vital role as corporate parents and that safeguarding role that wraps around it. She's also really good at being really, she's got a huge amount of candour as well, and will debate and discuss those difficult issues with you, and stepping away sometimes from actually her role as a group director to explore that issue separately. And I think that is a really valuable role as a senior officer, allowing that opportunity to debate and discuss. She is the absolute queen of Christmas gifts. to lighten the mood a tad. And again, that just goes to the heart of her kindness and her consideration for others. And I think you leave behind a huge hole in the organisation, but also that lasting positive legacy for our children and young people in education, in social care, and in all the partnerships that you have been a part of leading with, whether it be the NHS, schools, colleges, police, voluntary sector. You treated them all equally, and I thank you for all of your systems leadership, and I wish you all the best in the future.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. Councillor Woodley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and warmest of congratulations to you and to our Deputy Speaker. Oh, Anne, I think I lost all professionalism when you told us your news and swore at you for 5 minutes in the nicest and warmest way. But really, I just wanted to say tonight, thank you. You've been an absolutely vital figure of calm assurance throughout this most challenging of times. I've lost count of the number of colleagues who've expressed to me how sorry they are that we're losing you. And the most recent, just earlier this evening, made me smile the most when Councillor Patrick asked if you were looking forward to your last meeting of full council and suggested it might not be too late to change your mind. You once took me aside and told me to call on you if needed, and I'm hoping the offer still stands and that you will still be a friend to us all. We have so much respect for you and wish you all the very best in the world.
Thank you very much. That's very eloquent again. Councillor Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations to both you and the Deputy Speaker. Since I became a councillor in 2016, Anne has been an ever-present stalwart at the council's top table, an understated example of girl power. She has shown clear leadership, steering services through challenging and uncertain times with humility. With her unenviably expansive portfolio as Group Director of Children, Adults and Community Health, I have never quite figured out how she's managed to speak so fluently on issues ranging from youth offending to adult social care. Her commitment to her work and passion for improving the life chances of people in the borough has been an inspiration to us all. Thank you, Anne, for your service to the borough. You will be sorely missed, and may I add, the council will be a far less stylish place without you. Best of luck in your retirement.
Thank you very much, Councillor Conway. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. As I said earlier, if you change your mind, I'm sure Mayor Glanville and Deputy Mayor Bramble would happily would take your resignation and retirement back. But I know that all good things have to come to an end, and it's a shame that the good thing in you has come to an end. I think there's been lots of great things said about you. I agree with everything that's been said. I've loved working with you on Children and Young People's Scrutiny Commission, the Ofsted Oversight Board, and more recently the Early Years Review. Your dedication to all these commissions and reviews have been outstanding. Your knowledge of every subject, whenever you're asked a question, you seem to know the answer to even to quite detailed subjects that most group directors wouldn't know about at such a low level. But you know, and you know it in a way. It's because you care about the service. I sorry to see you go. Looking at your name in Google, it said when you started, the Hackney Citizen said that we were getting a star pupil. I suppose that's a reference to you being a teacher. Well, I'd like to say that you leave in as an A-star pupil, and you've been an A-star for Hackney, and I wish you very well in whatever you're going to do next, even if it is sitting at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Finally, Councillor Fajana Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations. I just want to say thank you to Anne. Anne is one of those senior officers that you look at from afar. and that was what it was before I became a cabinet member. But before I became a cabinet member, and resemblance to my secondary school principal in Nigeria from 10 to 17, I attended a missionary boarding school headed by an English woman. And anytime I see Anne, he normally reminded me of Miss McNellen. But when I became a cabinet member and I started working closely with Anne, I can see the passion in what she does. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to get to work closely with you, Anne, since I became a cabinet member. I can see the passion you brought to all what you do. When we are in meetings, when we are discussing either around youth safety, safeguarding, youth offending, youth justice issues, it's like you are there actively seeking views and actively listening to people's view with respect, and not with the amount of knowledge you have. You don't belittle people's ability, you respect people's ability, and that is the way I found working with you. So I just want to say thank you for the way you have helped me to ease into talking about youth justice, youth offending in the last many months. And in the uncanny style, I will stop here for breath. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fajana Thomas. Can we all give Anne a round of applause virtually or in practice? Thank you very much. We're now coming to the end of this important meeting. I think we've heard what it means to be an effective and significant public servant, and it's been so nice that there's been a consensus as we applaud the wonderful efforts of Tim, Anne, and those who've made this council such a success. Members of the licensing and corporate committees are asked to remain online. There's no overtime payments, I'm afraid, for a brief period after this meeting. Thank you for attendance, and thank others on YouTube for watching. We should just briefly go through the programme of meetings for the municipal year. Will the council approve the programme of meetings?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you for your attendance. I now declare the meeting closed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, everyone.
Madam Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations.
Congratulations, Michael.
Sorry, can I check? Are we still sending this stuff out live, or is it now just for us?
No, I'd like to remind you that this meeting is being live streamed.
Okay. Did we complete the agenda on the previous meeting? That's what worries me.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did. There was an item about appointment of the acting chief executive and stuff that was on my agenda.
Came earlier.
It was done, Peter. What were you?
I was obviously distracted. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I would like
The Mayor
to.
did mention that Ian Williams had been appointed acting chief.
Yes. It's all okay.
Okay, right. We are going to convene the licensing committee first. So I'd like to welcome you to this evening's extraordinary licensing committee meeting, the first meeting of the new municipal year. I'd like to remind you of the meeting protocols. I won't read them out again. You have heard them a short time ago, and I trust that you are all familiar with them. I'll go straight into agenda item 1. The committee is requested to note the confirmed appointment of Councillor Emma Clouvier to the position of Chair and Councillor Brian Bell to the position of Vice Chair of the Licensing Committee, as agreed by full council at its annual general meeting today, the 27th of April 2021. Can the committee note these appointments?
Noted.
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 Excellent, thank you. I will now hand over to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay, can we now note the terms of reference for the licensing committee and the licensing subcommittees?
Noted.
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 Thank you very much, members of licensing. Are there any apologies for absence for the licensing committee?
None that I've received, Chair.
And are there any interests to be declared?
None from me.
Thank you, colleagues. Can we then agree to the establishment and membership of 5 subcommittees A to E as set out in Appendix 1?
Yes.
Agreed.
Agreed.
None.
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Licensing Committee 2021. And there is no other business for consideration, so I now declare the first meeting of the Licensing Committee to close.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
Chair. Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Members of the Licensing Committee, you are now free to leave should you wish to do so. I would like to officially convene an extraordinary meeting of the Corporate Committee. Again, I will not read out the protocols because you will be familiar with them, but I would like to request that the committee note the confirmed appointments of Councillor Claire Potter to the position of Chair and Councillor Katie Hanson to the position of Vice Chair of the Corporate Committee, as agreed a short while ago at full council at its annual general meeting. Can this be noted by the committee?
Noted.
Noted.
Excellent, thank you. I will now hand over to Councillor Potter for the remainder of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie, and hello, members. Can we note the terms of reference for the Corporate Committee?
Noted.
Noted.
Are there any apologies? Any apologies at all?
None that I've received, Chair.
Thank you, Natalie. Can we agree to approve the establishment and membership of the Planning Subcommittee as set out in Appendices 1 and 2 for the municipal year 2021 to 2022, and that any further changes to the membership of the Planning Subcommittee during this municipal year be reported to the Corporate Committee for consideration?
Agreed.
Thank you, members. Any other business? There is no other business for consideration. I now declare the meeting closed.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
That was a great meeting, Chair.
Thank you.
More like